Okay, so one of the listeners is stuck a little bit because this is a listener who has a fear of flying, and she
Hmm.
wants to know more about the parts integration process or the parts resolution process of how she can, so she's coming up against a memory. What would she, how would she layer over that to, what is the parts integration process?
Well, in this case, I would use the pattern resolution process.
Pattern
The pattern
resolution.
resolution process is actually the process that is about clearing the memory. It's about understanding what happened and then giving it a new meaning. So what you would do is you go above an event of the past where there was anxiety. You understand, hey, what was the anxiety really about? Was it just, let's say the turbulences, or was the neighbor anxious, or was there an anxiety about something actually outside of the flying that caused that? And then you're getting the learnings from that. So you ask, so subconscious mind, what do you want to teach me about this? What's important for me to learn? Often what we need to learn is that we were safe, even though we didn't really feel safe. But it turned out to be okay. It was fine. We were safe. Somehow it wasn't as bad as we interpreted it. And this is where the parts come in. We need to know that there is a part of us that still says, no, but flying isn't safe. So let's avoid it altogether. Let's not go there anymore. Being able to actually see this as a more smaller aspect of yourself that needs your encouragement, that needs your guidance, that needs you to know it's okay. I'll take you under my wings, which is,
Yeah.
by the way, what this guy from Peru did. He actually communicated with that little boy inside of him that
Mm,
was afraid. And after 20 years of never having gone back to his homeland, finally he could fly and he could see his family again in Peru because he did this process and he had no anxiety whatsoever. So that's a very powerful way to also then take this pattern resolution process and actually have a tool that you can do while you're on the plane, where you're actually communicating with this part of you that is afraid.
so he went to go see his parents in, or his mother that had flown away from him.
No, he lived actually in the US. So he later on came to the US with his mother, but he had uncles and aunts and cousins, and this whole family lived in Peru basically still. So, but he never
Got it.
saw them. So finally, he could go back and do
Got
it
it.
in a way that actually was enjoyable
Hmm.
and not
Interesting.
traumatizing for him.
So talking, okay, so what you just said about talking to that little boy in that, and as an adult, and embracing that little boy and talking to him with the knowledge that you have now as an adult, you're able to see things as a different, different perspective. You're able to understand, even if you can't remember the events, again, it's the emotional body that you're talking to and the feelings that that body had around the event. You don't need to remember the details. And
No.
that then reintegrating that little boy or that little girl back into you is, and I don't know if this is based on a Freudian technology, but re-owning that wounded child makes brings it's an entire wholeness that you don't even know that you were missing. For
Mhm.
me, it was a part of me that when I re-owned that little girl, that part of me, Dr. Schaub,
Mhm.
I have since then found a brand new source of energy. It
Oh,
was
wow.
as if somebody gave me, the youth serum or something. I have I have purposeful connection, beautiful energy that just wants to serve, that just wants to connect, that just is compassionate, that's
Mhm.
concerned about other people, that really wants to help them realize you might be living with this part that's missing in you. And, it's coincidentally, I had done an interview with somebody after you about reintegrating the shadow self, and it was everything has just fallen into place in an amazing way since that
Mhm.
conversation that we had. And I am so passionate about getting people to understand this. That's why I wanted you on the Stress Solution Summit, because anything that you might be going through right now, you're probably going through it with just a tiny part of your energy, a part that is you is something you've probably either hidden away, tucked away, purposefully kept in a little bit of a box so that you
Mhm.
didn't see. And when you really reintegrate those parts of yourself, you have so much more energy and passion for life. And it just sets you back on your journey. For me, it really reinvigorated my purpose in life, ultimately.
Beautifully said. You know, one of the things we have to understand is that the most anxious and stressed part of us, the one that is most in survival mode, is also the most sensitive one.
Mm,
And we often feel like sensitivity, vulnerability, that's actually a weakness. Let's forget about it. But that's exactly what you just said. When you bring this part inside of your heart and you integrate with this part, you have actually a greater capacity of compassion, a greater capacity to understand other people's pain, and a greater desire to lead them also to their wholeness because you are connected to that sensitive part. Sensitivity for me is a superpower. When we are really understanding our sensitivity and knowing how to take care of it and how to share it, it makes us actually so much more, quote unquote, I would say unbreakable, because you know everything people are doing is
totally.
actually really just a reflection on their pains and their fears, and you don't take anything personally. You can literally look under the masks of most people and you see their core and you understand what they're
Totally.
going through, and you have the compassion and empathy to want to help them. So don't
Absolutely.
be afraid of your sensitivity. And once you integrate it, like you said, you have so much more energy and so
Yeah.
much more fun in life
And
as
the little
well.
things don't bother you because you're compassionate about them. And so in the recordings here, not only will you learn how to and be aided into getting into a wonderful relaxed state, but a state that you can access the unconscious and the feelings from the unconscious that you have suppressed or buried, reintegrate them into your life through you address the inner conflicts and then bring the parts back into you that you have denied or hidden away, then replacing that with a positive, or I mean a more effective feeling, not necessarily Pollyanna positive, but like
Right.
in my case, it's compassion, it's purpose that's been
Mhm.
replaced. So someone's asking that they were diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. This
Mhm.
is a very common diagnosis that a psychiatrist would give you in order to be able to prescribe something that would enable you to get uh, insurance to cover for medications, right? This is GAD. It's a very common diagnosis, right?
Right.
Could that diagnosis actually pre-program somebody and actually do more damage than good?
I think most diagnoses do more damage than good because we have the tendency to identify ourselves with it. All of a sudden we become that person who has GAD. All of a sudden we become the person who is bipolar and whatever we are told. And in that moment we are trapped in the diagnosis. A doctor is an authority figure. And if a
Totally.
doctor looks at you, even though they have only maybe 12 minutes time, and gives you a label on your forehead, it can be the prison for the rest of your life. And I think that's what Western medicine, they're good intentions, but they don't understand how we are often actually diminishing our potential through those diagnoses and encouraging ourselves to heal. When somebody is diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, it just means that they have been in survival mode for most of their life. And the question needs to be, how can we get you out of survival mode? And not how can we make your emotions just somehow go away? Because, what anxiety medication does is certainly helping you to cope. And for some people, it's exactly what they need to start the journey to work on, but it's not the solution because it only gives you basically a certain kind of numbness, and it doesn't really help you to discover more about yourself. And just like we said, sensitivity, feeling is actually a gift. It leads you to your wholeness. So diminishing our ability to feel cannot lead to that what we are actually would call true healing.